Welcome back to the Better Everyday podcast, where we are unlocking our best self one episode at a time. My name is David Garcia, and this is my beautiful wife, Grace Garcia. So we've gotten to, this is episode 15, 15 weeks strong.
Crazy to me.
I'm sure you guys have noticed in the last couple of episodes, I've gotten more excited about how many episodes we've been getting in. It's been really awesome to be this consistent, and I thank you, babe, for being consistent with me and always giving your best. So today's episode, I wanted us to talk about an ingredient that comes with achieving greatness or experiencing greatness. Now, the word greatness, I think, is subjective. Mm-hmm. I think it's different for different people. But I think when you mix in the word faith, I feel like it's something that you can't deny when you experience, like, wow, like that was crazy, right?
Yeah.
And now maybe you as a listener, maybe you aren't a person of faith. Maybe you aren't a person that believes in Christ. And you may call it the universe. You may call it whatever you want to call it. But we on this podcast choose to call it faith, and we have faith in God. We have a faith in Christ, and we have the Holy Spirit living in us. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is a great conversation because, our episode or our podcast is called the Better Everyday Podcast. And part of becoming better every day is we want to achieve greatness. Yeah. You know, we want to achieve, not for us to boast about ourselves, for our ego or for our pride, but just to live out the purpose that God has called us, right? And so I think, again, an ingredient of achieving greatness is faith. So, again, whether you're a believer or not, I think if you've already achieved greatness or already experienced greatness, there came a moment in your life where you had to take, quote unquote, a leap of faith. Mm-hmm. You know, and even secular people who don't believe in God, call it a leap of faith, you know? And if they really broke it down, maybe they don't even think about it when they say that, but they know what it means. Like, I'm jumping into an unknown. I'm hoping that it works out, mm-hmm. but it might not work out. But I'm hoping that the preparation has been there, and you know, it just happens, right? The way that we see it is, we as humans, we can only do so much, and the rest is up to God, right?
Yeah.
And so an example of that for myself was when I proposed to you. I, at the time, was living in Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Beautiful city. Everyone needs to go there. JK. It's a very, very tiny, not much to do there.
It's nice.
Yeah, sure. For like a quick visit, but
yeah.
Would I ever go back to live there? I'm sorry to anybody from Winnipeg listening to this, but I would never go back there. But anyways, I was living there. And so America, ever since, 9/11, is very strict on, who they let in, how they let them in. You know, people can debate that in regards to like the Mexican border and look how easy it is to come in and blah, blah, blah. But let's just say that if you do things the proper way, they make you jump through a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you guys a good amount of the context, right? So, because I want you guys to experience what we had to experience. Mm-hmm. And so I propose, we work it out. We have to get a fiance visa. You kind of figured everything out. You had somebody here helping you and giving you the information. And I remember, we were worried about, saving for the wedding and moving and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm a person that I need to know everything up front. Mm-hmm. I don't like surprises. I don't like, spontaneity or whatever. I'm not that dude, right? And so I told you, okay, get all the information. I know you have this person helping you. Get the information. Get it all. And what I meant by information is, tell me how much this is going to cost me, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember you told me like, it's going to cost like, I think it was like $1,100 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no problem. And so we paid the $1,100. It was just for the application or whatever. And then all of a sudden they came back and they're like, here's this other fee and this other application. And they were just making me jump through hoops. But one of the hoops that they made me jump through was they were like, okay, in order for us to let you into the country, we need you to do a physical. And when I first read that, I'm like, physical, no problem. I'll just go to the doctor here. I mean, I haven't been to the doctors in such a long time, but I'll just go to the doctor, get a physical, no problem. But
Yeah.
if I kept reading and it said, you need to get a physical done by approved doctors by our government, which was only 3 in the country of Canada.
They don't trust y'all.
Yeah. And so one was in Toronto, I think. One was in Vancouver, and the other one, I forget where it was. But they were like far away from me. I'm in the middle of the country. Like, if you have time, Google where Winnipeg, Manitoba is. Almost smack dab in the middle of the
It's
country.
in the middle of nowhere.
And so they were sending me to the East Coast or the West Coast. And at the time, I think I was going through some financial struggles as well. Like, I didn't have that much money, right? And I think I was.
got laid
I got
off.
laid off. Yeah.
I remember him calling me, and we were like, obviously getting ready to get married, and you told me you got laid off, and I thought it was a joke. I was like, no. And you're like, yeah. So you were working, I think, for digging or something, but it wasn't
You have good memory.
like legit, like your job.
No. So I was
side
working
gig.
for cash. And at the time, I wasn't even living at my house. I was living at a friend's house because I had been.
Moving. You were in the process of moving,
we
selling the
on the
house.
process of moving. My mom and my brother had already moved from the house. My father at the time was in prison or jail. And so we were going through this transition. I was at a friend's house. They were a lovely family, the Medinas. I don't know if you guys listen to this, but thank you very
Shout
much
out.
for everything that you guys have done, all the love and support that you gave me through my whole process. And so I was living with them, and one of the guys that live in the house, his name was Brandon. He's like, hey, I could hook you up with a job. They pay like about $100 a day. And we go to like houses that are being built, and we kind of just dig like a trench or something like that. It was really weird. I didn't understand what we were doing. But I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna make money.
money, yeah.
You know? And so it was hard work. It was
Physical
hard
labor.
work. And I remember we worked in the type of thing where if it rained, you wouldn't work. And so low-key, I was like, yo, God, please make it rain so I don't have to work today, right? But I needed the money. And so around this time was when we were getting this information. And they're like, hey, you have to go. And they were giving me specific dates. You got to go this date. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't just a physical that I had to go to. I decided to go to Vancouver. And so it wasn't just a physical, but I also had to do the interview. And again, I'm like, okay, man, like it's going to be rough, but no big deal. I'll just do it all on the same day and then I'm out. And again, they're just like, no. You need to get the physical. I think it was like on a Thursday. And your interview won't be until Tuesday. And I'm like, so you're telling me I need to be there for like 5 days when it's only necessary for me to be there for like 2 hours?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. Like, and at the time, I was researching and I'm like, okay, let me look for hotels. And if you know me, I'm a little bit bougie.
He's
I'm not the type to rough it and stuff. And so all the hotels were $400 a night. And that's something I cannot afford. Like $400 a night times, like, let's say 4 or 5 nights. 4 nights at $1,600, 5 nights, $2,000. I'm like, and the flight and the food.
And transportation.
Oh my goodness. And the crazy thing also was that the physical was in somewhere in Vancouver. No, sorry. The physical was not in Vancouver. It was like in some other city. It was like about an hour away. And the interview was actually in Vancouver. And so I'm like, how am I going to get to this other city? I got to rent a car. So it was like the price of where I'm staying. It was the rental of the car. It was the food we said and everything that would come with that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I told you, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I don't know. And so we ended up scrounging up enough money to buy the flight. And then we bought the flight, and I ended up, the only option that I had, guys,
stayed.
the only option that I had was a thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, a thing called hostel.
I never heard of it until he told me where he was gonna stay.
And so hostels are usually meant for backpackers, people that, don't really just need a place to sleep for one night. They don't care about, they just need a bed. That's it. They need shelter. That's it. And so these hostels usually, almost like a dorm.
Yeah.
So the place that I stayed at had 2 bunk beds. So there was 3 other strangers that I was sleeping with. No idea who they were or nothing. And there was no other choice because that was I think $40 a night. And I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
I had no other choice. Like that's what I have to do, right? And I remember one of the ladies that was living at the house I was living at the time. I had been open about my process and everything that was going on, and she was like, here's an advance. I know you're gonna be able to pay me back whenever, but here, I think it was like $400 maybe. And I was shocked, and I'm like, okay, like, it's gonna work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I forget what happened. I think I had to spend money or whatever, but the point is, it ended up, I only had like $100 to survive over there in Vancouver. I'm like, what the heck am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna have to survive on like just dollar menu McDonald's. That's it, right? So I get to Vancouver, and I remember, oh no. Before I went to Vancouver, I was like, you know what? There was no other choice, right? And I'm not really somebody that will complain in regards to like when there's some things out of my control, like for that, let's say, I was like, okay, like there's nothing I can do about it, like it is what it is. And I honestly thought like, okay, it'll be a cool story to tell, like it'll be funny, But here's the thing. So I only have $100, right? And so I have to make $100 work for, let's say, 5 days, 3 meals each day. Let's say even 2 meals each day. 2 meals, $100. What is that? Like $20 every single day. That's all I had to spend, really. And so I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. I don't know what's gonna happen, and then I told you, because if you don't know, Grace's dad is somewhat famous in the Hispanic world of church ministry. And so I was like, babe, can you ask your dad if he knows any churches in Vancouver that I can just go visit? Go visit. That's what I said.
Because again, he stayed there at Thursday, so he was not going to do anything like Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday.
And I'm like, I might as well go to church. Like, I might as well, I'm like, what else am I going to do, right? And so I didn't have money to do anything else. So I'm like, I might as well go to church.
Yeah, so I asked my dad. I just told him, like, oh, Dad, that's my husband. My fiance is going to go to Vancouver. Do you know of a church? And he's like, yeah. And then he came back to me and was like, oh, so I found a church. Like, I know a friend who knows someone. And so he found a church, and he introduced you as one of his musicians.
Okay, so a little bit more backstory. So the way that you told me was, oh, yeah, he has a friend out there and already got contacted. They're expecting you. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And so turns out that your dad actually only knew somebody in Seattle. And that person in Seattle knew somebody in Vancouver. And so I get there Thursday. I think I went to go do the physical, and I was just chilling. And I get this call, and it's this pastor. And he's like, hey, David, I heard you're in town, and I heard you're Pastor Tony's musician. And I'm like...
And he's never played with my dad.
At that point, I'd never played with her dad. Nothing. And I just like was shocked. And he's like, we would love to have you come and play and minister on Friday. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know what I said, but it was almost like, I don't know how I got to the point where I might have said yes, or I might have been like, okay, cool. And then I remember like hanging up, and I called you, and I'm like, Grace, what the heck just happened? Like, again, I'm not a person that likes spontaneity. Yeah. I like to be mentally prepared, right? And so I'm like, Grace, what did your dad get me into? Like, this guy says...
He was freaking out.
This guy says that I'm your dad's musician. I've never played with your dad. Like, and it was like, it was shock mixed in with like, I guess a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to like represent being your dad's musician when your dad has like traveled the world doing his thing. And I'm like, I play some basic chords and I could sing a little bit, but nothing like, oh man, this guy's been around the world. Yeah, right. You know?
And then I remember him telling me like, tell your dad to like cancel it off. And I was like, no. And he was trying to come up with every excuse in the book. He was saying, I don't have clothes. And then you didn't. You weren't prepared.
I didn't have clothes. I had.
Like, I have to spend my money to go to H&M to get like a decent shirt.
Okay. And that's the other thing, right? So when this pastor, his name is Pastor Abdias Lemus, a beautiful man, super loving guy, amazing pastor and family. I'm like, I don't have the clothes, right? And then I'm like, I never, when he said like, we would love to have you, I never, ever thought, oh, I'm going to go do a gig and they're going to pay me for it, right? And I'm just like, oh, like, I was just stuck on like, I don't want to go up there and make a fool of myself or nothing. Like, I'm just like, and so, yeah, I was looking for every single excuse. I had rubby jeans. I had just t-shirts. And Grace was just like, take $40 and go to H&M. And I'm like, $40? That leaves me like $60. Like, what? How am I going to survive off that? And she was like, I don't know, but just go to H&M and buy like
I didn't let you borrow money.
I don't think you had money to let me borrow. Like, we were in that, it was pretty tight.
I'm like, I wish I had the money to send you.
Yeah. And so like, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, and you'll just go to H&M. Yeah. And you go do it. Like, you'll be fine. And I'm just like panicking, like, no, I don't know. Get me out of this and blah, blah. And I remember you kind of just like sternly was like, stop, just go do it. That you asked for a church, go do it. Yeah. And you were like, you've been doing this for how long? Like, just go do it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I went to H&M and I bought a button-up shirt. Like a short, I think it was a short sleeve button, but I still had rubby jeans and rubby shoes. And I felt bad, but I showed up and they were like, oh yeah, like, I think they presented me as like, oh, one of Tony Perez's musicians. And I ministered and it went really well. And then after they took me out to Boston Pizza, which is a great spot, And I got to know the family and they were, was it that night? No, it wasn't. So I got to know the family. I was driving. So it was like, got to know them. And then they were like, hey, we would love to have you on Sunday as well. And I'm like, okay, sure. You guys seem cool and stuff, you know, like it wasn't like, when I went up and I played, I ministered, it went well. And the family was like really receiving. The church was really nice. Like everybody, there was young adults around my age as well. Mm-hmm. And so after we went out to eat, we had great talks, whatever. And when they invited me back, I'd be like, oh yeah, like this is awesome. It feels comfortable, right? And so I went back to my hostel. I thought I had explained it to somebody. I explained it to the pastor, but he asked me in the middle of, I think somebody was speaking. And so like there was noise around and he didn't really understand me, right? And so he was like, oh, where are you staying? I'm like, oh, at a hostel. And I think he heard like at a hotel. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we went our separate ways and I was like, I'll be back Sunday, right? I think they took me out on Saturday actually as well.
Yeah, I think you went out with like the youth or something.
Yeah. And they
just hang out.
Again, amazing guys, amazing people. It was, they were very loving. And that was like the beginning of the faith, right? Because I went out there and I'm like, I have $100 to live on. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm just hoping for the best. And you at that time had that times 1,000. You at a younger version of yourself always had it'll work out. Don't know how it's going to work out. It's going to work out. It'll be fine. And I was more pessimistic. Like, no, like I need to know the details. I need to know how, like, and you were just like, no, just go do it. And that was the beginning of like, oh, like I met new people. Mm-hmm. I got an opportunity to minister at a church. Like it was things that I would never expect. again, I was just like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like, I know God's got me. Like, I know it's going to work out, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. Right. And so that was the first step. And I was like, wow, like, and I was very grateful to God, grateful to the church, grateful to that, the pastor and his family, like to the young adults. They were, it was just amazing. I was like, wow. Like, and I remember just being grateful to God. I'm like, this could only be you, you know? And that's part of like, that faith, walking into that unknown where it's like, there's no way that I could take credit for this. There's no way.
Yeah.
Like even calling you and tell your dad, like, okay, that's only a piece of it, but nobody knows the rest of that story. Like nobody could have said like, oh, this is exactly how it's going to go and it'll be fine. It could have gone so many different ways. And so for it to start going like that, I was like, wow, like I was grateful. Saturday was really amazing. They took me out. And then Sunday I returned. I minister again. It was, again, very beautiful.
I thought though Saturday, that's when you told like a young adult your situation.
Oh, that's right.
So that Sunday.
Yeah. So they were telling me, because they were curious, obviously. They had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, you play with Tony. And I told them like, oh, I'm in the process of marrying his daughter. And this is what, you know, America has me doing and jumping through these hoops. And I didn't really have that much money. And I don't even think I mentioned the money part, actually.
Nobody told them the hostel.
Yeah, I was staying at a hostel. I had to do all these things, and they were like, "Oh, no way!" And I think whether if it was one of the sons or one of the young adults, they ended up telling the pastor, and so Sunday comes by, and I go up, I minister, really beautiful, amazing. The group was great, the church was great, the people were great, and after I'm done, the pastor comes up to me and whispers, because it was his time to go up, and he's like, "Hey, can I tell people like your story?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like it's like, you know, a faith-based story. Like, yeah, if you want to stir up the faith in this church, go ahead, you know." And so he ends up saying like, "Oh, this is David Garcia. You know, he's marrying Tony Perez's daughter. He's going through the process. America has him jumping through all these hoops and blah blah. And we'd like to raise an offering up to him." And immediately I'm like, "No, like." I don't know how to explain that feeling, but I'm just like, it's not embarrassment, but I'm just like, no, like I didn't come here to panhandle. I didn't come here to ask for money. Like, it's just a privilege to be able to, you know, be part of the service, you know, like to be of service. And I just felt like, but how do you stand there? Like, no. Like, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, it was crazy. And so, he does that, and then the church service is over, and he comes up to me and he's like, "David, I misunderstood you." He's like, "I thought that you told me you were staying at a hotel." And then I think it was one of the sons or the young adults explained to me where you're staying. And he's like, "Had I understood you on Friday, I would not let you go back there." He's like, "I would have found a place for you to like stay, a more comfortable place." And he's like, "So I figured it out. You're gonna be staying at these two guys' house, both young adults, they're brothers, great family." And I'm like, "Oh, I would appreciate that. That's awesome. Like, thank you." And I think I only had one night maybe left. I think I only slept there one night. And so, and then after he's like, "Oh, then after come to my office and I'll give you the offering." And I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea. But after the service, you know, people are coming up like, "Oh, like, thank you, you know, for taking the time to minister. Thank you for what you did," and blah, blah, blah. Getting to know the people. It was, again, super nice, very humbling. I was like, I never expected this. And so, the pastor gives me an envelope, and it was a fat envelope. And I looked at it and I'm like, no way. And I remember, I think I texted you or called you, and I was like, and I ended up counting it, and it ended up being the whole cost of the trip. And I was just blown away. Because again, this was not something I was seeking. I was walking into an unknown. You know, and I think when you walk in faith, you walk into a lot of unknowns. where again, like at the end of it, you can never say this was because of me. You could only say this is because of God.
Yeah.
Like there is no other explanation, at least the way that we see it, right? And it really blew me away of that. To me was when I talk about experiencing greatness, that's one of those moments, because I was in the process of marrying you. America was making me jump through so many hoops that I wasn't expecting. And we have you guys met Nate. Nate says, if it's God's will, it's God's bill, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be financially, but it just basically means like if God called you to it, like he's going to make a way, right? And so that to me was experiencing greatness, because that for me was affirmation from God, like what you're stepping into, I've called you to.
Yeah.
You know, like this marriage is what I've called you to. There's a purpose to it, right? And for me, I was blown away. I was just like, wow. And I remember, I mean, you've always been super close to your family. At that time, your mom was still around, and Mom, guess what happened to David?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I remember also just feeling so much peace, because I think we mentioned this. Like, we were just dating for 7 months when we got engaged. And that did seem fast, like to us, to people around us, like getting comments and questions, like, are you guys sure? And part of me would be like, well, I want to, but am I being crazy? Like, is this too fast? And for me, that was just God kind of sealing it and saying, how you said, like, I'm backing you guys up.
Yeah.
Like, I want you both together. And so I saw it as just peace. Like, yeah, we are young. Yeah, we're not doing things how people always like, you know, like, I'm not ready for marriage financially. They want to have, like, you know, all their ducks in order, how they say it. Like, that wasn't us. Like, we were just literally like just running. And so that definitely gave me peace. And the beautiful thing about it was that not only I feel like you got blessed in that situation, but we actually went back when Elijah was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it not only did he bless you or the church at that time, but then it was like a family blessing. Like, we were able to go back, pour into them, have a wonderful time, memories in Vancouver. Beautiful place, beautiful people.
Beautiful place, beautiful people. The church is beautiful. The family is beautiful. It's, but every single time that I think about this, like right now, I'm just like getting all the emotions again.
Yeah.
Of like gratitude, and like gratitude towards like I see the family that let me stay with them in Winnipeg. Then the lady that was living there that was like, hey, here's some money, pay me back when you can. And me being so grateful of like, no, I didn't ask you for this, but like you out of your heart, like you did this, you know? And like, then the family and the people in Vancouver, like it's really humbling. It's really beautiful when God puts these people around you and he's just like basically whispering like, hey, or maybe not even whispering, like shouting out loud, like, hey, I love you. Just in case you forgot, hey, I love you. Hey, guess what? I'm still with you. Like, and that's an attribute to the people being obedient to God and just loving on people. And it really just like, it really gets to me, because it's just like, I guess I've always said I never play the lottery, right? But like there's times where the lottery gets to like 1.1 billion, you know, and I'm like, Grace, should I put 20
And I'm
bucks?
always like, no.
And you're like, don't waste your money, and I'm like, just in case, right? But I've always this has always been true in my heart. And there may be more depth to it. So if anybody listening has more depth to what I'm about to say, like please share it, because mine might just be surface level. But I've always said, like, if I ever win the lottery or whatever, or if I ever become super wealthy, like I don't think I'll ever forget about every single person that has been a blessing to my life, where I would go back and be like, here, like whatever that looked like. paying off debt, paying off their house, whatever. Like, just as like a thank you, like, I did not forget what you did, you know? And yeah, that's just a side note. Like, I'm always grateful. I remember for one Thanksgiving, I did what seemed to be very corny, but I just wrote down every single name and every single
I remember.
family of like, I'm grateful for all of you, because without you guys, I would not be where I am, you know? But yeah, so let's continue on with that, the unknown. Like, have you felt ever going into an unknown and seeing God show up, or having that faith, or experiencing that greatness or whatever?
I have many times. I mean, just in our marriage, I think we've always, and I thank God because I have the wonderful parents. I had an amazing mom where her faith, she was a woman of faith. Like, sometimes we would make fun of her, like, Mom, you don't even see a mountain and you're like, I'm gonna make the mountain move. And we're like, like, you have so much faith that there's a mountain there when there isn't, and it's gonna move. But that woman, I think I got her faith from that. And I think your faith grows when not only do you see it in people around you, but then you yourself experience it. And then it's like a beautiful thing to see. But even in our marriage, there's so many times where same thing, like, you wouldn't have a job and we wouldn't be scared about it. Like, it was just like, oh, it is what it is. And there was one time you had a decent paying job and then you got fired when I was my third trimester and I was about to go on maternity leave. And I'm like, wait, this is ill timing. But I was like, okay, I'm like this. And I specifically remember telling you, like, this is because you were comfortable and God wants you to get higher paying. This is because our son is on the way and he knows it. And so I didn't see that as a, like, oh, life sucks. Like, of course we would. Kind of like that victim mentality that a lot of people can tend to have in those situations. I saw it as he's preparing it for us so we can step into something greater. And yeah, sure enough, like, the job you had was at a corporation with your bosses favored you and it was just a God thing.
Yeah.
And then same thing, like, I think every season in our life, like, there were so many times where I think I mentioned it last time, where we had a big chunk of money and poof, it disappeared.
You say poof, it disappeared like somebody stole it from us. Like, no, we spent it.
The stocks?
Well, yeah, that was just unwise.
That was just poof, it disappeared.
Yeah.
But I remember I was grateful because it showed us how strong we were in our marriage. Like, we just got out of couples therapy. And that was a scenario where I could have simply just, like, thrown it at you and be like, you're a horrible provider, you're a horrible man. And I didn't. I was like, I'm so grateful because it kind of was a test to see where are we in our marriage. But I knew, I had no doubt. And I told you, like, this is because something's going to happen with our finances.
Yeah.
Like, I have no doubt. And I think that's what faith is. Faith is not wishing something. Like, I wish I was a millionaire. I wish I can get this career. Like, it's not just wishful, naive thinking. I think what faith is, it's, you know that you know you're going to get there. That, how you said, the hows are not clear. You don't know God's plan. Like, there's no way to know what the Almighty has for us in store, but you know that He has you and that He has a plan for you. You know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'll never forget, I don't think we've shared it on this podcast, is when I was pregnant with Araya. And my dad went to a church. Was it in Guatemala? He went to church in Guatemala.
Oh, God.
And then there was a prophet there from Spain. So mind you, he's in a different country. The prophet is in, like, a different continent that she's supposed to be in. And she's prophesying to multiple people there. But then she looks at my dad, and we have this in recording, and we couldn't even believe our ears, where she looked at my dad and his wife, Flor, and he was like, you have a daughter, and she's pregnant. And she's due in March. And it's with a girl. And it's like, who would know that from Spain, in Guatemala? But then she said, and that baby girl is going to bring prosperity. prosperity. And mind you, this is like a time where we're just living paycheck to paycheck. Like, we wanted to get better. And I think we were at the brinks of knowing we needed to change or make a change, and we're starting.
No. We weren't living paycheck to paycheck at that time. We already had investments. We were doing pretty good with investments. And I think we were throwing a good chunk into investments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. But when we heard that, like, I remember you were in tears, and I was just like shocked, but I 100% believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I grabbed onto the word, and we both were on the same page. Like, this is from God. Like, this, first of all, is crazy. Like, how would she know that? And we had that faith.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, again, it hasn't been a nice uphill battle. Like,
Yeah.
oh, prosperity, it came true. Just, this is easy. Just money's coming in.
Yeah.
It has looked like a hike where you're like, I thought I was going up, and it seems like we're going down. And, then it gets really hard going up. But that's what faith is. Like, no matter what it looks like, knowing that we're on the other side, it's crazy. And there's times where I'm just like, God, of course. Like, of course we're going to get out of this situation. Or of course I'm getting blessed. Because sometimes I even felt guilty of like, I'm getting blessed, or, oh my goodness, is this for me? Is this, like, is this just going to be something that's fleeting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a one-time thing. And I have to remind myself and say, no, like, we're walking in prosperity, and not just financial prosperity, but prosperity in our marriage, where it's a healthy marriage, prosperity in our friendships, prosperity with just like family. Like, we're happy, like wealthy in not just our finances.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what faith is, that even if we lost that money, because we lost that money after we got told that prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
I like reminded you, like, no, we're going to be prosperous. This is just a setup. This is a reflection. Our foundation wasn't straight. Our foundation couldn't sustain our prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to take a look at it, see what's wrong, build it again, because that prosperity is coming, and we need to make sure when it does come, we're wise.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we had a Father's Day dinner with my dad, and Melody shared, she was like, Grace is doing so well. She shared like how I blessed our Connect group last time.
Okay.
And then my dad was like, do you remember the prophecy? And I'm like, yeah, like, I feel so blessed to be a blessing. Like, just knowing that I can be a blessing in times where I feel it, and then I talk to you and we're in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's bless these people. Like, it just reminds me of how God has sustained us from those days where we were scrambling just to get you here.
Yeah. And I think my insecurity just makes me want to clarify, like, when we received the word, I now was crying. Like, I wasn't crying like, I'm going to be rich. Like, this,
Okay.
It was like crying like,
You were seen.
For me has always been like affirmation, but the affirmation that kind of like, I see the hard work that you're doing. And for me, the word was just like, I see the hard work that you're doing.
Yeah.
I see you. And it was like, your hard work is going to pay off. I'm with you, and that's the part that makes me like, okay, like, God loves me. It's going to be okay. Because when you said like we were living paycheck to paycheck, it might have seemed like that because at that time, I think we were still being super strict in regards to like every single penny and blah, blah, blah. And like, not that we're not strict now, but like we were, I at least me, I was like super, super strict.
Yeah.
And so that could be very wearing on us. And I think that's why maybe you felt like we were living paycheck to paycheck, but it was just like, no, it's hard work to have to like just be very disciplined and just like no fun things and no this and no that, right? And and the other thing is that we received that word, and we've never received a word like that or received any sort of blessing really and said, oh, it's for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we're both on that same wavelength, that same mentality of like, no, we're going to receive this blessing. It's awesome that God has entrusted us with this blessing, but it's never going to just stay with us.
Yeah.
It's going to be for other people. Like, I think when God gives us a blessing, it's something to be stewarded. And it's for blessing other people. It could be your family, it could be friends, it could be people you don't even know, it could be your connect group, like whatever it is. Like, but we never believe in us being like a treasure chest where we lock it up and it's like it's only ours. Like I've always seen receiving a blessing as we're a stream. Like it comes to us and it goes to other people as well. You know, like as an overflow. But the one thing that I really liked that you said was like, kind of like about the perspective, where when we lost the money, your perspective was just like, no, this is just a setup. It could seem like a setback, but it's a setup. The other time that you said was when I got laid off when you were in your third trimester with Elijah. You were like, it's all about perspective. And so we go back to the conversation of comfortability.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a huge topic for a lot of people, at least in America, where we want that comfortability, you know, and I feel like we're beating what's the saying? Beating a dead horse, or because we keep saying it, but it's very, very important. And especially when we're talking about this topic of faith, stepping into the unknown, like your perspective is very, very important, because when you get into the unknown, you could be like you said, like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. Like, why do I have to do this? Why can't it be easier? God, why can't you just show up? And we talked about, you know, the bus analogy last time. Like, why can't you just do what I need you to do when I want you to do it, you know? But to be able to achieve greatness, I think, again, we said faith without works is dead, right? So we got to do our part. So when we get to that crossroads of, are you going to go to the unknown, or are you just going to stay here and just like wait for something to happen, you know? Like, our part is we're going to step into the unknown, having faith that we don't know exactly how. There is no plan. Like, the plan is trust God. That's about it. It's a very broad plan. And exactly how I said in my story, like, I had no idea any of that was going to happen. And a lot of times when we step into the unknown, we never know what's going to happen. If we really look at it in a human aspect, we have talents to rely on, skills to rely on, intelligence, wisdom. But even so, in the grand scheme of God's master plan, that can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And again, I believe that God always sets us up in regard, like, he sets us up to be able to experience him and give him glory in regards, like we say, like, this is not us. It can never be us. Like, the things that we've experienced, we don't take credit for it. Yeah. It's just like, no, that could only be God.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what I think faith has. I don't want to say it looks the same for everyone, but it has a template, because there could be maybe dreams, desires that we ourselves have. But how you said, if it's God's plan, he's going to do it. Like, there's only so much you can do. And yeah, you are playing an important role, and obedience is huge in that. And how you said trust, but like, sit back and you'll be in awe of what faith can do. And I think how you said it comes down to faith. And I see our story and think of the first man who was attributed to his faith, which was Abraham. Like, he was told to leave his home, city-state in Mesopotamia. And my 6th grade ancient civilizations teacher came out. But he's told to, like, leave his family, leave what's comfortable to him, like what's unknown to him, to go to this new place, Canaan. And he is given this promise. So, like, he's told, you're going to have a son. Like, that's it. He has no idea what that really looks like, how it's going to happen. Like, he decides to take matters into his own hands and has it with his servant. And I kind of see that, like, us, where we're told prosperity, and we started saving into the stocks, and we wanted to get rich quicker, like, kind of take a shortcut. And that's kind of what he did, right? It was like, okay, well, it must be through my servant then. Like, why not? Let's just do this. And even God, in his mercy and his grace, he sees our mistakes, and he's probably like, oh my goodness, like, if you just had some patience. Yeah. Come on. Like, I did not tell you to do that. Like, does that really seem wise? Like, if you thought about it, you'd probably be like, no. And he's still like, he blesses us, and then we see, okay, we do have to deal with some consequences. It's not just, all right, it's gonna be perfect. But then he still showed up again. Same thing. There was a moment of testing, right? Of like, are you gonna sacrifice your son? Like, how much do you trust me? But at the end of the day, when he trusted God and he obeyed God, that blessing wasn't just for him. Like, he ended up blessing. He ended up being the father of nations. I think that's what faith looks like. You're getting out of your unknown. There's going to be times of trials, especially if you take matters into your own hands, times where there'll be consequences, times where you have to shift back into your perspective. But God's grace will overbound, and that if you continue the pace, you're going to see the promise being fulfilled, and you're going to see it in a way where it's not just for you and your family. It is for everyone around you.
Yeah.
And I think like faith has that template where it's not going to be the exact same scenario, cut and paste, but we're going to see his mercy and his glory, and it's because of him, nothing that we can take credit for.
Yeah. And then I also believe that when we step into faith, we allow God the space to do what he does, and for us to learn about him more, be in more better relationship with him. Like, I always tell anybody, it was usually the youth that I would tell them, like, God is to you how you've experienced him, or you've allowed him to show up in your life.
Yeah.
And if every time we get in front of an unknown and we go, nope, then you're never going to experience God in that unknown. Like, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Take that leap of faith. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be surprised at what God does. And I think it's just a stronger bond in relationship between a father and son, or a father and daughter. Like, I think he wants to show up in your life. But he ain't going to force himself on you. He basically like, hey, there's an unknown. It's up to you if you walk in. But if you walk in, I'm going to show up. And if I show up, you're going to see me in a different light. And our relationship is going to get better. Our relationship is going to get stronger. And I think as you experience God in faith, our faith grows. And not only our faith, but our hope grows. Because for me personally, like I've always said it, like I feel like now I can go through a lot of hard things because of the hard things that I've been through before, and God carried me through. Now when I get confronted with the hard things, I'm like, come on. I know God's going to show up, And that's not to say like I'm strong every single time like something confronts me. Like there's definitely still times where I'm just like, oh my goodness, like how am I going to like do this, or like maybe frustration or worry or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's something like, I think it's the Holy Spirit that reminds me like, hey, don't forget, you've been through similar things. You've been through hard things, and God was there, and God will show up again. But it's just the American culture, yo. We want to be in control. We want to know how, when. Like, it's just like, no, like to leave it to chance. I don't think so. But anybody who has experienced great experiences, they went into an unknown. They put in the work, and they let God do the rest.
Yeah.
And again, if it's God's will, he'll make a way. He'll make it happen. He'll place the right people around you. He'll give you the right skills. He'll, what's the thing?
Equip you.
He'll equip you. He'll set you up for success. And it's not going to be for your success. Again, it's going to be for a stronger relationship between you and God. He's going to bless you, and that blessing is going to pour over to other people. Even if the blessing is not monetary, even if the blessing is not like something like tangible or material, like even if it's just wisdom, that wisdom can be imparted on other people. That knowledge can be imparted on other people. Like, that's what it's all about. Like sharing all the blessings, And so, that's been our story of faith.
Yeah, I remember you can't practice faith if you know it all, if you've seen it, if you're not in the unknown.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to practice faith.
And I just want to encourage you guys, like, practice faith, even for the ones who may not believe in Jesus. Like, if you have faith, it gives you hope. Like, if you don't have faith in anything, you get to those hard moments, and what are you thinking? Like, what's going to give you hope?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your own personal, like, skills, intelligence, like, that's only going to carry you so far. And after that, you've tapped out. Like, what then?
Yeah.
You know? And so I just want to encourage you guys, like, practice faith. It's going to give you hope. Everyone, we all go through the unknowns. We all go through hard times, you know, and it's all about perspective, like you said. You could see them as a setback. You could see it as a setup. Same exact circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And how you see it, that perspective that you have, will dictate the direction that you're going. It'll dictate the attitude that you have. It'll dictate the faith and the hope that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really all in your hands. Like, God's like, hey, here's an opportunity. All those unknowns, all those hard times, they're all opportunities. God's like, here's an opportunity. It's up to you.
Yeah.
And so anything else that you'd like to add?
Just, I think we mentioned in a couple podcasts we brought is the Israelites, like, story of them complaining in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of bringing it back to your story in Vancouver, that if we complain through it all, like, I think we sow those complaints. Like, that's what we're going to get in return. Like, not much, something shallow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to say thank you for you, because of your heart. I truly believe God sees the heart, and that's where he's, like, moved by it, and then wants to partake and wants to pour out and bless. Because throughout the Vancouver trip, you could have been like, well, I'm not going to go if they don't give me anything, or just have a bad attitude, or decided, you know what, it's not worth it, all of this. And but your posture, and people have said that about you, like, your demeanor is never of like, this is who I am, I'm here, like, of ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of this is what I can offer, this is what I'm good at, like, move out of the way, step out of the way. Like, you've had such a demeanor of, like, serving, of, God, I don't know exactly why you have me here, like, this humility. And I think that's required in faith, because, I mean, faith, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So you're not like, oh, I'm here, this is what I'm going to control, this is how I'm going to change this scenario or the outcome. But when you have that humility, that, like, God, like, what do you have me doing here? Like, God, I don't even know what to expect. You're putting yourself in a low manner so that he can kind of take the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think also part of faith is that humility, that perspective of not complaining, of like, oh God, we don't have this food, and might as well been in Egypt, because we had control back then. We were to eat, we would do this. And just, if they had a different perspective, one of humility, where God can show up, and God did show up, and they still decided not to see it. So that's why they delayed their blessing. They didn't even get to promised land. I think that's a huge aspect of it that I wanted to, like, bring up, and
Yeah.
that I'm grateful that you've always had that. But I think also that's just needed.
And I do thank you for that. That really means a lot. Because yeah, like it's like, I feel like it's natural in me. Like, it's not something that I have to, like, program. You know how I always say, like, I have to program something in my head. Like, that's something I've always been like I don't have. It's not that I don't have confidence, because I have confidence in the Lord in regards to, like, when he has me to serve. Like,
Yeah.
I've been there before with him, where I'm like, I know you're going to do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is more about you than it is about me, right? And yeah, like, I've never had that posture of, like, I got this.
Mm.
Like, don't worry about it. We ain't got to pray or nothing. Like, we got this.
Yeah.
You know, but I do appreciate you saying that. That really means a lot. And that's, I mean, just to be vulnerable with the podcast, like, this is what I mean in regards to, like, the seeing me part, you know, like, the words, like, those words mean a lot to me. And we've talked about it in past podcasts where you're like, oh, you're handsome and blah blah. I'm like, okay, cool, like it's fine, I'm handsome, you know. But like those things, like when you say things that you see that some people might not say, or like just like something that I'm feeling. And I think it's part of like, I guess you could call it the inner child, you know, like, and I feel like a lot of us had this, like, I just want somebody to see me, you know, like I'm doing these things and I don't want to wave a flag, be like, guys, do you see me? Do you see me? Like, do you guys see this? Like, it's just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But when it happens, like it really, really, really means a lot. And it really penetrates my heart. So I really appreciate that.
I love you. I appreciate you.
Love you too. Well, guys, that wraps up this episode. We appreciate it. We hope that this episode has blessed you. We hope it stirs up faith in you and hope.
Yes.
And we hope that it also encourages you for you guys to be courageous, to step into those unknowns, to have that faith and just trust God. We've told you a little bit of our story, our faith-based story. There's more stories that we could have told.
Yeah.
And if you haven't experienced God like that, I would encourage you to step into that and just give him the space and see what happens. I promise you, he won't let you down. I promise you that he loves you. And I really hope that everybody here is stirred up with courage, and I appreciate the conversation that we had. And I don't know if it's wrong to say, but I know that if I was a listener to this, I would be like, at least it gave me the push, you know, to like, let me be more faithful, you know.
And if you have any stories of faith that you want us to share, like a comment or something, I think that'd be cool, you know, like if you guys put in a story and then we do a testimony, like we read the stories.
Like a praise report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let us know, you know, you could say, give us a comment and say, oh, feel free to share this on the podcast, and we'd read it on here, because I think it's contagious. Faith is definitely contagious.
That is a great idea. Yeah, let's do it. Like if you guys, anybody has like some sort of like testimony, or like, oh, there's a victory of this week, like, you know, or like this is what this episode is all about. So it'd be awesome if on the next episode we could be like, hey, you guys remember that episode where we talked about faith? Well, here's a couple of people that, you know, practiced it or put a comment and gave their testimony. Like that'd be awesome, I think, to do. So we would really appreciate that. That'd be awesome. And also if you guys could like subscribe, share, follow. We have a total of 88 huge followers on YouTube. We're almost at 100. But we do appreciate every single one of you that listen, and it would be very much appreciated also if you guys share it with your friends, if only if you guys feel like it would bless them.
Yes.
We love you guys, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
See ya.